Hello, Park Academy community. It's been a while since I've been able to address you in this way, but I wanted to make this a little bit more personal and wanted to talk to you a little more directly about where things are at and where I think things might be headed and what to expect as students return. Here's the good news. We are slated for an in-person return to education this coming Tuesday, January 18th. When we went remote, we knew that cases were surging in the community. We know that they're going to continue to surge in the community. The decision making around going to remote was not actually based on the case count around the Portland metropolitan area. At this point, it's the expectation and the desire of the board, the community, and even the Board of Education that schools stay open if at all operationally possible. And we want to follow suit. We want to do this as safely as we possibly can, but we know that there is no replacement for in-person learning for our students. So the reason we went remote last week was several-fold. First, we were really short-staffed. I was teaching, Mary was teaching. We couldn't do our administrative duties, and we got to a point where it was very hard to actually support students any longer due to teacher absences and staff shortages, and that's why schools are closing across the region. I'm happy to report that right now that our staff is largely healthy and that we have been able to add some different supports on to try and mitigate anybody who needs to be out so that we can try to stay operationally functional over the next several weeks. We were really short on tests. We got down to just a handful of tests, and that has been a very important factor in keeping our community safe. We have had positive tests on site. We are doing multiple daily tests, and we need to be able to do that in order to screen and identify those who might have either been exposed or might be feeling ill. We needed time to put protocols in place. While we knew that Omicron was present prior to the holiday break, it had not shown up in the way that it did until we returned. And it really drastically changed the landscape. And because it shows up differently than past iterations of COVID-19, we needed to have some different measures, and we couldn't catch our breath to do that. And it was really important that we actually have the space and time, and that was largely due to the staffing issues as well. So this gave us that time. We also had a community surge. So we had post-holiday surge of close contact cases, and over a quarter of our population was out in some form of an exclusionary measure. That doesn't mean that a quarter of our population had COVID-19. It does mean that we were impacted in dramatic ways and kids were being excluded significantly from school. We don't have the capacity to do in-person and distant learning with the fidelity that I would like. And although we're going to have to be doing that to some degree going forward. So what do we know right now? We know that right now, things can change. My crystal ball is obviously broken, and I am in a constant state of gathering information and making decisions. But right now, we know that we have a staff that's largely healthy. We have increased number of tests and test capability on site. We've had a chance to meet as an administration to talk about different protocols that I'm going to hit right now. And we're going to continue to monitor how this impacts our local community. And we know that we can go in and out if we have to. If we need to go into short bursts of distant learning, then we will do that. And we will do that with the goal and the effort to return to in-person learning as we're doing right now. I hope that we don't have to again, but I hope that we're building the faith that we're making good decisions and that we can do it if we need to. So what can you expect upon your students' return? A few different things. So first and foremost, I can't say this largely enough or loudly enough. If your student is sick, if they have any illness symptoms whatsoever, please keep them home. If a student has a sore throat, it could be COVID-19. If they have a headache, it could be COVID-19. We're seeing a completely different ballpark when it comes to the Omicron virus. We're seeing people who believe they have strep throat, that believe they just have a cold, that haven't had what they identified as close exposures, and they're assuming that it's something else. And right now, that the assumption should be that it could be COVID-19. We need students to get tested, and we need them to communicate and you to communicate with us anytime there's an illness or exposure so that we can make a plan together. We will be reinstating daily check-ins. We need to be asking students as they come in, we will be asking if they've had a headache, sore throat, cough, fever, illness, and if they have that currently, and they could be excluded based on that. So please, let's not get that in the door. Let's plan for that ahead of time. But we will be doing checks as people are coming in the door. Masking. More and more, the research is showing that the N95 and the KN95 masks really are much more effective than the homemade and the cloth masks that are out there. And so we are highly encouraging folks to please try to get and use and send students with the KN95 masks at least. Through a generous grant, we actually have many masks coming soon. And for those who can't procure that or would like support from the school, we will be providing the KN95 masks for students. We'll have both small and adult size masks available, but they are much more largely available than they have been in the past. And so if you can get those and support the usage of those, if students forget or lose their mask in school, this is what we will be giving out. It is vital that students wear their mask appropriately. We have had issues and often have to talk to kids because their mask is like this. I know that it slides down during the day, and especially with the homemade and the paper masks. The KN95s have the metal piece, and it is important that this stay up over the bridge of the nose. Omicron is shown itself to be much more highly airborne contagious than past variants of COVID-19. So I will be providing more information on accessibility of the KN95s through the school soon. This was a new development, but we are highly encouraging and asking people to please use the K95 masks if at all possible. Testing. Boy, we know that COVID-19 is showing up in homes. Please know that if you have COVID-19 positive people in your home environment, or there has been a significant primary exposure, you need to talk and consult with us so that we can make the best plan of attack, of action, I should say. It is likely that will lead to an exclusion for a period of time for most students. That is a short-term need in order to keep our school from going fully remote for a period of time for all students. We're doing everything we can to mitigate the risk that we know is in the community. So if you have had or recently had COVID-19 positive patients, there goes my wife is an emergency room nurse, so there goes, you can tell what our discussions are like in the afternoons. If you have folks who are COVID-19 in your household, living with a student that goes to Park Academy, that needs to be communicated and we need to make a plan of attack. We are providing limited distant learning opportunities even when we are in person, if students are feeling capable and able. So we have much more limitations than if we're in full remote, but for core classes and pieces like that, we are having students engage if at all possible. That's not something that we were doing simultaneously in 2021, but it's something that is necessary in the now because we want students to stay home and we don't want them to feel like that's a significant detriment to the school or to their education. And yet we need folks to stay home when they are ill in order for us to stay open as a school. We do not have the ability to have people bring students in for testing. So if they are ill or they've been exposed, they're going to have to procure tests from outside settings. We can try and help with problem solving to find those tests and opportunities, but we want to err on the side of caution. And the fact is we have limited resources as well, and we need them to keep open. That is another factor that could put us back into a remote learning environment. If we do not have the proper supplies to keep our students safe, then we have to wait until we have those supplies. So while we do have more tests now than we did previous to this week, it's still very limited. And so we can't test people just out of a pure precaution or desire, and we have to have cause and reason, and we can't test students who've been identified or things have happened outside of the school environment and they've come to the school to find testing. We just don't have those resources. Weekly testing. The CDC is now recommending that, that all students and staff be tested on at least a weekly basis. Now, the problem is that there's no tests. We don't have enough testing and facilities, and we don't have even the personnel infrastructure to do that on our site. But we have a fantastic free resource that we want our entire community to participate in. Through OHSU, and this has gone out in multiple communications from Ms. Davis, and that is that OHSU is providing weekly screening for all students here for everybody who opts in. It's a simple nasal swab of some forms, and you drop it off here, and we have some weekly screening. And that is something that is free and available to our whole community. So if you are not participating in that, please reach out to Ms. Davis directly. If we could get full or near full participation in that weekly screening testing program, I think it would go a long way, both for your own peace of mind and health and for the operational stability of our school. So please check into that. This is through OHSU. It's a weekly screening piece. We collect the data, then you get the results within a couple days. Again, Ms. Davis has most of that information. All right, so where does this go from here? I think I've already established my crystal ball is busted. All of our crystal balls are in shambles at the moment. It is our goal and effort to remain in in-person education as much and as long as possible. We are returning from distant learning because the measures that we took to take a break and to find the information and to get the supplies we needed worked, and that allowed us to come back. And so I hope that you have the faith and understanding that we are paying close attention to these things, that we are making dynamic decisions in the moment based on the information that we have, and that those will change over time with new information. It would be my goal that this is our last closure, but it's possible that I could have multiple staff members get ill tomorrow. We could burn through our tests, and the state could tell us that we don't have any more tests coming for some time, on top of multiple student illnesses and exposures that would lead to a decision where it was appropriate to go back to distant learning for a period of time. And my goal would be to make that as short a period of time as possible. I absolutely have to have your help in doing that. If we don't rally as a community to do the things that we need to do to keep each other safe, the likelihood that we will have to move back into distant learning or in and out becomes much, much higher. So please communicate with us. Please understand that we know that we are living in a world and a set of circumstances in which there are positives and negatives to every decision and every consideration that we have to make, and we're doing the best we can under the circumstances that we have. In the meantime, know that we're going to do hard work to try and maintain the fidelity of your child's education, whether we need to be in distant learning or whether we're in person. And we're going to continue to do that and fight for that as we have even before COVID was even around. So thank you very much. Please reach out to us if you have more questions. Understand that your students will be returning as long as they haven't had an exposure and illness over this span of time. On Tuesday, the 18th, that there will be doing daily check-ins, that if you can get a KN95 mask if possible, that would be fantastic. And please communicate anything that could be impactful to your child or to our community with us as soon as you're able, so that we can work together as partners in this to do the best we can for our students. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing those kids next week.